Right. Welcome back, everybody, to Talk Openly. My name's Jac. I'm here with my wonderful Sangha friend, Daniel. We are members of Lions Roar Dharma Center, and just happy to be back tonight and talking about our own personal experience rather than, than the experiences of highly enlightened beings that we have no insight into.
I know, isn't it such a relief that we gave up on that?
It is such a relief. I'm really, yeah. We're like, okay, now we're in our element again. This is,
It's
yeah,
right.
in our lane rather.
Right, right. Hmm.
Um, but yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about the eight Mahayana precepts, because we're going to be taking them tomorrow. It's the full moon of the month of Saga Dawa. And so a lot of people take the eight Mahayana precepts. And so we'll be talking about what those are and then our kind of personal experiences of having done them in the past. And so I'm looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to tomorrow.
Me too, me too. I'm stoked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy taking the precepts. So yeah, I
I
think it'll be a good
I'm glad that we're
discussion.
going to get to talk about it because there has been a time when I did not enjoy taking them.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into it.
Yeah, we will.
Good. Well, how are you?
I'm doing all right, pretty good. Generally speaking, my practice is going pretty well, and my meditations they're not as long as I wish they were. Like time, like everything's kind of speeding up. There's more demands on my time and stuff, and so
Mm.
I'm a little bit disappointed about that. I wish I was be able to sit for like whatever, like an hour a day or something, but it's not. That's
Hmm.
not happening. Um, yeah, but it's interesting. I was thinking about something that Baba Ram Dass talked
Hmm.
about. Ram Dass was one time talking about how different ways in which his guru taught him, right? And he meant that in the sense of like not necessarily a human being teaching him, but just lessons, learning lessons from different situations and stuff. And yesterday I had one of the like a day of instruction, and I can't say that I did not enjoy it, but it was eye-opening.
Uh-huh.
So it was one of those situations. So it was like it's a couple of different things. I'm going to share them with you because they're I thought they were helpful to me in particular.
Yeah.
What happened was early in the morning. I love crows, right? We've talked about that before. And
Hmm.
so the crows around here, I haven't created any kind of a relationship with them, and I've been around them for a couple of years now, but I've kind of just left them alone. And then they got new babies now, and there's like a family at the end of the street, and I was like,
Hmm.
okay. And so I took some unsalted peanuts with me on my dog walk. And
Yeah.
I was like, oh, there they are. They're up in the tree. And so I started kind of like making noises at them. And then the parents came down and I tossed some peanuts out towards them. And I was like,
Yeah.
and they came down and I was having like this little moment. I'm like, oh, this is so sweet. This is so nice. And then I hear somebody yelling at me, hey, would you not do that? And I was like,
Oh.
what? What? And this guy came out of his house and he was so mad. Like he was like he like couldn't even see straight kind of mad, like yelling
Oh.
at me like, what do you think you're doing? I was like, whoa, 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 it's not garbage, they're just peanuts for the crows. I know what you're doing, he said. Like, what the hell? They're, just pooping everywhere and making a lot of noise and I don't even want them here. I don't want you feeding them,
Mm.
whatever. And I was like, whoa, whoa, it's kind of intense, right? I
Yeah.
apologize and whatever. I actually, I started picking up some of the peanuts. He came out and he's like, I'll do it, and I was like, okay, all right. And then he went inside. Like, I tried to, like, try to engage with him a little bit. And he just he wasn't having it, and he went back,
Mm.
storming back inside. And then I was like, it like affected me all day in a really interesting way because I was
Yeah.
like, I understood actually where he was coming from, right?
Mm.
Like here I was all self-absorbed in my own little world, thinking about me and the crows and our little special relationship. And I wasn't thinking, who knows, maybe the guy had like a newborn baby or he had night shift or something. And the crowing loud birds out there with their babies, it would be irritating, you know?
Yeah.
And what if
Yeah.
you had like a brand new like Tesla in the driveway and the birds are crapping all over it, you know? Like, I get it. I get it,
Uh-huh.
you know? And I was like, ah, you know? And yet, even so, even though I tried to be gentle and I tried to be, accommodating and all of that, it was really interesting how self-absorbed it became so personal, right?
Yeah.
And throughout, I mean, this lasted, it went all the way until I went to sleep, like
Mm.
where I just kept on sort of like reflecting on it. And then I was like, I'm gonna write him a letter and and then I'm like, no, that's self-serving too. That's still just about me, right?
Mm.
And so I got to see this like this ego of mine illuminated like all day,
Mm.
thanks to this wonderful, wonderful teacher neighbor of mine who was kind enough to yell at me. That was really good. And right before that, now if that wasn't bad, that was and right before I went on this walk, I had this realization, something had happened where I make homemade dog food, right?
Mm.
And I love my dogs, and I'm always like, oh, just this plain recipe is not good enough. They need a little something, something, right? Make it a little extra. And I've got my family has like chastised me about this in the past, right? Like, no, the dogs don't need that. Just give them simple, basic food. And somehow, like, I keep insisting, somehow it's like part of my thing. Like, I want to please others with food, whether it's crows or dogs or whatever, or myself, right?
Hmm.
And so like I have this like this urge, this desire, and so I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna, and I look in the fridge and there's like some blue cheese, and I toss it into the food, right? And then my spouse says to me, Daniel, did you put something in the food? And I said, oh yeah, I put a little bit of blue cheese. Not a
Bad
lot.
idea.
Not a lot, mind you, just a little bit. I thought it's stinky. The dogs love stinky stuff. They like cheese, right? Nothing, it's just
Yeah.
cheese. And she says, well, uh, why'd you do that? And I was like, come on, whatever. And then she says, is it okay for them? And I
Yeah.
said, and here's where like this is going to come into the precepts that we're going to take tomorrow. I say, what? Of course, come on, it's fine. Like, duh, of course it's fine. Did you look it up? No, I didn't look it up. Come on, it's fine. It's good. It's not even that much. It's just a little, no big deal.
Mm.
So then I noticed yesterday morning before I took the dogs out that the little chihuahua wasn't eating his food. And I was like, uh-oh, something's up. And it was like warning, 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 something's not right.
Mm.
So I Google it and it's like, do not give your dogs blue cheese.
Oh no.
It has toxins in it and like it can cause all kinds of problems and like a little tiny bit probably won't hurt them, but like
Right.
don't give them blue cheese. Like that's one of the things you should definitely not be giving dogs.
Oh
And so
man.
I was all like, oh God, here I am screwing up again. There it is again. So I dump out all this food that cost money and took time to make, and I'm feeling bad about it. And I'm like, everybody's been trying to tell me just give them simple food. And I keep insisting, and my idiocy is just like on full display. So the
Oh
whole day, like I just had this, and the poor Chihuahua is like not feeling good all day. He's okay now. He's fine.
yeah, good.
Yeah, it's okay. He didn't have to go to the vet, but it wasn't like that. He's eating good food now, and
Good.
everything's fine. But it was like somebody had cranked up the Daniel meter, like this who I think I am and all of that, and it was just on full. And I just felt like such a dumb idiot all day. And then I was like that too, even that, right?
Yeah. It's just never ending,
It
huh?
never ended. And I was so, and I really, I'm not just saying this because we're on a Buddhist talk show. I really did have a great sense of appreciation at the end of the day. I was like, that's just like, Ram Dass, it just like, wow, what a wonderful teachings. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing quite like having that sort of self-centered sort of ego on full display for everyone, including yourself to see.
Mm. Thanks for sharing it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And it sounds like, you were really able to, in the moment, like bring Lojong to
Oh,
mind.
oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah,
And some Tonglen. I actually did some Tonglen for myself and for my neighbor friend teacher.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did you notice like when you were doing those like mind training practices?
Um, I noticed I felt like it didn't feel forced and it didn't feel artificial and it felt genuine and there was a lot of gratitude. It didn't change the fact that I just kept looping. You know what I
Mm.
mean?
Hmm.
That part kept happening all day long. Like there was it just got kick-started and it was like on like I said on full display all day. It didn't matter that I shared it and that I was mindful and I paid attention, meditated on it, talked about it. None of that really it just kept go. I could like really see it, you know. And
Yeah.
so it was kind of like funny, actually. You know, like I sometimes like I like catching myself. You
Yeah.
know, it's embarrassing sometimes and it kind of hurts a little bit. Like it's uncomfortable, but
Yeah.
like there's something really relieving about it.
Mm.
You know, like
Mm.
yeah, like thinking I'm so smart and I'm like Snow White talking to animals or whatever, you know, whatever stupid stories I have concocted about myself and the world around me, and to just have that like erased for a minute.
Mm. I love that. And even, it's like something where you could really say like, right, like I was being altruistic, I was offering a mouthful of food to a being born as an animal. Like that's
Right?
something that's, a really good thing to do.
Yeah.
It's merit building.
Yes.
And at the same time, yeah, we can have a story around it.
Yeah.
And so it can be both, and yeah, it just is both at the same time.
Right.
Especially as we're just starting that path of accumulation, right? There's gonna be a lot of ego mixed up in it.
That's right. That's right. And like we don't I think the part that I found so interesting is that like it is like my heart feeling around it is genuine, like
Yeah.
wanting to be it's like I just want to connect with these animals. I want to love them. I want them to have fine things and you know what I mean? Like I'm like that's like it's goodness. But that desire for that kind of goodness is not the same as actually delivering it, right?
Mm,
Like you know, it's easy to harm people with our good intentions, or harm
yeah.
beings with our good intentions. That's why being mindful, paying attention, receiving teachings, learning to be skillful is so important.
So important. Yeah, that's one that like it's scary sometimes, right? Because to think that like, oh yeah, my good intentions could be harmful. And I try not to be like neurotic about it. But but yeah, it is one where I'm like, ooh, that was an overreach.
Yeah, and you can see how it would easily pop up with in relation to the Dharma, right? Where there's this desire to share, and you kind of like maybe you think you know, like this has happened where I'm like, I think I know something. I actually don't know anything. That's been I know very little, you know, but I think I know something. And so then I act as if I knew that thing and like it was real and true, and it turns out like no.
Yeah,
And then it's not helpful, right? But
yeah.
thankfully we have all these kind beings like my neighbor who will let us know that it's not helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man, did I tell you the story about when I thought that my car was towed and or stolen?
I think so. Yeah, but please tell it again.
Oh God, it's so embarrassing.
Yeah.
And it there's an additional layer to the story that I don't think I shared
Oh,
this time.
come on,
And
dish it.
that's the one where I'm like, oh, I was told so ego driven in trying to be like, I don't know, apologizing. Um, So yeah, in Port Townsend, there are a variety of little shops and ice cream shops, and it's very cute Victorian town. And I went down there to hang out with some friends and parked, and then actually first I was volunteering at a shelter. I went and volunteered at the shelter, and then was planning to go have dinner with friends. And so I get to the little ice cream shop that I had parked in front of, and my car is not there. And I knew that I had parked in a 15-minute parking spot, but nobody gets towed in Port Townsend. It just doesn't happen. So I'm like, where is my car? Like what is it? Did it actually? It must have gotten towed. Like I was like trying to think logically, like yes, there's, I've never heard of anyone being towed in Port Townsend, but it's not here.
Yeah.
So therefore it has to be towed. So I called two different towing companies. They didn't have my car. I called the police. They didn't have any information. And so I was like, it must be stolen.
Oh no.
And so the sheriff calls me back because I had, called and been like, I don't know where my car is, so something's going on. And so I had him on the phone, and then I was like, so I don't think I'm hallucinating, but like maybe I should go walk a couple blocks to see if that's not where I parked. And so I remember, oh yeah, there's a second ice cream shop in Port Townsend that is also a 50s diner style ice cream shop,
Yeah.
like a block away from one another. And so I walk there, and sure as shit, there's my car. But in the meantime, before that, like, so that's one thing where it's like, oh my God,
Yeah. Yeah.
like brain, thinking that it has to be something, right? And then it's not.
Yeah.
Like I'm so convinced that it's something that it absolutely the fuck is not. Like just pure ignorance, right? And
Yes.
it's like
Yes.
arrogant ignorance too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But so something that happened, like backtrack a little bit, that I felt so like embarrassed about, but I don't think was actually like that big of a deal when I look back, was that when I was on the phone with, it was either the tow company or the sheriff, this man from the diner came out and was like looking at different parking spots and like looking at his car, or I don't, a car. And I just assumed like, oh my God, this dude like probably called and got my car towed. And so I was just like, hey man, like I was on the phone, I was like, man, like did you get my tow car or my car towed, man? Like, okay, that really sucks, like so after realizing that no, no one towed my car, no one stole my car, I felt so embarrassed about like
Yeah.
accusing this person of
Yeah.
calling to get my car towed. And he didn't even like, he kind of like looked over, but seemed like maybe he didn't even realize
Yeah. He didn't know
what
you
was
were
going
talking
on,
to him even.
right? And so I went back to the diner and like, oh my God, I like even got like Google Translate to translate into Spanish, like my apology. Like this is how
Yeah.
absurdly like
Yeah.
egoistic my apology was, right? And even like as I was going there, I was like, dude, is this like even a good idea? Like this
Right?
is this is all bullshit. But I apologized and it was fine. Like it seemed to appreciate it. But was also kind of like, like whatever. Um, and so then afterwards I was just reflecting on like, yep, that was all about me. That
All
was
about me, the whole dang thing.
all,
All the way
all
through to
about
the end of the apology, just about me. Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's something that I feel
That's a good
embarrassed about
one. I love it.
recently.
I love it. And
Yeah.
yeah, that resonates. It
And it
hits.
was just like,
Yep. 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 That's what I mean is it's kind of like those moments they're embarrassing, right? We're just like, dang it, really? Oh, there I go again. But catching it is kind of cool. Like
yeah,
seeing it and being like, "Oh, right. There I
yeah,
am."
for sure. Yeah, hopefully I'll be able to catch it like a lot sooner.
Yeah.
like before even thinking that the car is towed, that would
Yeah.
be
That
preferable.
would be nice. That'd be nice. Well, that's where mindfulness practice, like, including the mindfulness practices that we'll be engaged in tomorrow, it'll strengthen all of that. And
Absolutely.
hopefully it'll prevent us from getting too self-absorbed, too deep into that sort of self-absorption,
Totally. Yeah.
self-serving sort
And
of
we
attitude.
all need some of that right now. It's definitely
Oh yeah.
difficult times, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, I've certainly had to kind of watch my mind while looking at the news and trying not to completely catastrophize. But
Yeah,
yeah.
tell me where you're at, Jack.
Um it seems like things just get ratcheted up so intensely with this administration that I just don't know. And it's like things that a couple days ago we were like, nah, they're just like huffing and puffing. They're not going to send out Marines. And they've now deployed Marines, right? To LA. And um so everything is just kind of completely nonsensical, and there's this part of me that's like, okay, like ratchet it up. Like let's do this, you know?
Oh, okay.
There is that part of me that's
Yeah.
very combatant, it's very militant,
Yeah.
and wants to have a confrontation. Because there's
Interesting.
this part of me that wants
Hmm.
people to see just how uh terrible their government can be. And that maybe that will shift things around. Um,
Hmm.
So that part is definitely coming up for me.
Yeah.
And like wishing I could be there and like
Yeah.
participate. Um, I definitely have like a FOMO thing when it comes to like social movements. Like I want to be there. Um, but I'm yeah, trying to just remind myself like what's within my control? What can I actually do? What is skillful? Um, and like maybe all that I can do right now is just like Tonglen, you know,
Yeah.
or maybe there's, there's some immigration rights advocacy groups in the area that, yeah, maybe I could get plugged in there. But yeah, it definitely has been uh yeah, intense time. And my sister lives in LA, my family lives in LA, and so thinking about them as well.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, how are you doing
You,
with everything?
I think I was gonna ask you, I guess partially because it's personal to me in relation to what you're saying here, is that do you struggle at all with, I mean, it does sound like there's a little bit of a struggle in terms of knowing what to do, if anything, right? So part of me with my privilege, I kind of, I'm like, well, um, this is just how things are. This is samsara. This is,
Mhm.
yeah, ebb and flow of life. Political regimes come and go. All kinds of things happen. And, I'll just do the best I can. Right? There's
Yeah,
that. And then
totally.
there's like, no, man, you need to like actively get out and help and protect and to do something. And then I'm like, but what's the right, it's sort of like I was talking about earlier. I mean, I don't even know how to
Yeah.
feed squirrels and dogs, right? How about helping other human beings in times of distress and helping society move in the right direction? You know what I mean? Like, I can't see clearly my own relationship to all of this. So my default is actually sort of inaction, right? Like I'm like,
Yeah,
I'll just back off and just do the best I can. But at the same time, that comes up into conflict with no, there's a need for actual action.
for sure. Well, and I know with like with your dogs, like you're not going to stop feeding them, right? Like there's like you need to feed them. And so learning from that kind of failure, or kind of like, oh, I
Yeah.
had this moment where like, oh, I was going to make it
Right.
better. And I think that is like kind of inevitable with these things as well, is that like there are going to be mistakes made, and sometimes don't know what to do. Like actually, one of the things that's been really helpful for me is I've been reading the Bodhisattva vows every day, and specifically this booklet that the temple gave many years ago. And there's this back page where Lama has this kind of questions to be thinking about as a Sangha. And one of them is like, are you, willing to show up when you don't exactly know what to do? Um, and, he's saying that in the context of, temple practice, but I think also, community and Lama's talked about building community and being engaged. And so, there are definitely, uh, I think ways that I get stuck too. Um, but then it's like, okay, but I'm still going to give that mouthful of food to an animal,
Yeah. Yeah.
even if it is like, like, yeah, there's going to be things that don't work with it, but like, I'm still doing something. And so maybe it is just like, okay, well, then like spend some time being intentional about it.
Right.
Like maybe next time I bring peanuts out, it's like down the street, right?
Right. Not in front
Um,
of this dude's house.
right.
Right.
So it's kind of like being able to adapt and shift gears, but still act altruistically, otherwise
Yeah.
you get kind of frozen.
I appreciate what you're saying. I think it's true, right? Like I'm not gonna stop. I'm not gonna not help. I'm not gonna not when I'm called to some type of action. I think it's interesting. A friend of mine recently sent me the instructions to Rahula from his father, the Buddha, right? So where the Buddha gives his son Rahula instructions. And he's just sent me this as a text message. He was talking about it in relation to something else. But in it, the Buddha is talking and he's talking about how to examine your intention before action.
Mm,
So before you take the action, you examine the intention behind it. And then being mindful during the action. So you don't lose the mindfulness just because you're in the middle of the action itself. Reflecting on it afterwards
mm,
and as you just indicated, engagement with the community, talking to just like this, asking other people within the community, like, is this helpful? Is this right? Is there something better? Is it what's actually needed? You
yeah.
know, those are some good instructions. So I shout out to my friend Jack Young for sending me those. I think
Yeah,
it's
that's really
contextual.
awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like there's always places to donate too, right? Like
That's
if you're
right.
kind of like, man, I just don't know yet if my motivation is in the right place to be like on the ground or whatever it
Right.
is. Like
Yeah.
there's organizations that help with all different kinds of things like NorCal Resist is a
That's right.
Sacramento-based
Yep.
immigrant
I've heard of
rights
them. Yeah.
advocate
Yep.
group, and they're incredible. They do such good work. And so, there's places that you can get plugged into that already have this,
Yeah.
um, uh, community network that they're plugged
Yeah.
in with, and ideas for like how can a beginner get involved,
Right.
So
And there's going to be less within those types of groups. There's going to be, aligning ourselves in that way is not likely to give rise to this sort of just getting swept up in the moment, right? Like, oh, it's fun to create Molotov cocktails and throw them, right? Like that kind of thing. I mean, maybe there's a point at which that's helpful, but like it's unlikely to be helpful at this point, right?
mm, mm,
And so I can kind of that's part of the thing that I find kind of disturbing about the media's role in all of this is that it's very difficult for me to know what's really actually happening, right? Like so
mm,
much of it seems not true, not right. I'm like, I can't quite believe, like, I mean, I believe my eyes in the sense that something, yes, sure, things are happening, but I don't know who the actors are or what their motivations are. But those, aligning with like those groups that you mentioned, it's unlikely that they're going to be involved in any of that kind of nonsense, right? It'll be
mm,
actual community helping real people,
mm.
right, with real needs.
Yeah. Yeah, and I do think that like, the outpouring of emotion and energy on the streets, right, does come from an altruistic place.
Sure.
it's just being expressed in a way that maybe, um, yeah, can upset, right?
Oh,
Um,
right. Yeah, absolutely.
but yeah, I was kind of thinking about that, how, my dad's one of those folks who believes that, there's professional protesters,
Yeah, yeah,
and it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
no, it's just people who care about their neighbors, and who are really upset that people are getting hurt. I strongly believe that, because I've been there. Um, so, but yeah, yeah, I think getting plugged in is challenging, and like sometimes, yeah, that feeling of like, I don't know what I'm doing. But it does help to not feel helpless, I think,
Indeed.
in this situation.
Yep. Thanks. Appreciate that, Jack.
Yeah, thank you. Shall we do some Lojong? I think
All
we
right.
need
I thought you'd never ask.
it.
Let's do some Lojong slogan training. I just know it's going to be a good one tonight. I can feel it.
You can feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh, this is good. Hey, you were right.
Yep.
Okay, let's check it out. So, number 30, don't rely on your good nature. Gosh, they just really just drive at the heart, don't they? Um, it looks like there's a lot of different interpretations for this Lojong slogan, but we're just going to check out one of them. So this is from Charlotte Kyabgon. The contradictions implicit in this difficult and enigmatic slogan are reflected in the varying interpretations found in different Lojong commentaries. The Tibetan phrase literally means don't rely on a dependable object, but the Tibetan word for dependable object implies a friend more than a nondescript thing. The contradiction comes from the fact that it would normally be considered good to rely on a friend. A more accurate English rendition of this term would be good nature, and some Lojong commentators have understood this slogan to mean that we should not always be constantly shifting our focus to something new. Once we have made up our mind to do something, we must stick to that course of action until we've reached our goal. Interesting. There's a lot there. It looks like we've got one more. Maybe we can check out what Triumph
Oh,
Trumper
thank
wrote
you for
as well.
noticing that. Yeah.
So the literal translation of this slogan is don't be consistent. Huh. But it is more like don't be so kind and faithful, so guileless. Huh. That is to say, an ordinary person or man of the world would have some understanding about his relationship with his enemies and his friends and how much debt he owes people. It is all very predictable. Similarly, when somebody inflicts pain on you, you keep that for long-term storage, long-term discussion, long-term resentment. You would eventually like to strike back on him, not forgetting his insult in 10 or even 20 years.
What in the
What
world?
in, yeah, there's just so many.
Don't
Don't rely on
on
your
your
good,
good nature. Okay. Don't rely on your good nature. But then,
which
yeah.
maybe we could talk about that, which seems like its own thing separate from what I've been reading. But like, I was thinking it was kind of like what we were talking about. Like, hey,
I
you could
thought
have
so too.
good intentions,
Yeah.
but then like, people are probably going to be upset no matter what you do. Um, so I was thinking that, but all of what I just read seems very complicated, different than that.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Maybe given that there's a million different interpretations, maybe we have some leniency to interpret it
Yeah,
ourselves, right?
maybe.
Maybe I think in the context of what we were talking about, right? Like at least examining the root of that so-called good nature or good
Mm,
intentions might be beneficial. But it's so strange to me that that's not what they appear to be talking about.
yeah.
Dependable object, but they mean more like friend rather than an object, right? And then Chogyam Trungpa is like, don't be so kind and faithful, so guileless.
Isn't that interesting? Don't be so kind and faithful.
Yeah.
But then it's talking about how like, yeah, we can hold on to resentment.
Yeah.
This is interesting. We
Oof.
should talk with Lama about this.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I'm not really sure where to go with it, but
Yeah.
I am gonna make a little note here for myself.
And
Uh,
I wonder, maybe we could have Dirk on for a show just on this particular
yeah,
slogan, because I know
right?
he put together all of the quotes and whatnot too, right?
He
As far
did.
as I know. So
You,
maybe he's got some more insight.
you know what I'll do is I'm gonna leave this page up. I just took a picture of it, so it's gonna remind me of it. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna shoot him a message and just ask him. He's really good at communicating via email about this kind of stuff.
Mm,
And I'm gonna shoot him a message and tell him that you and I are having a hard time understanding, interpreting this, and would he like to offer a little bit of insight?
yeah, great. That's
Okay.
wonderful.
So
Maybe we
I'll
can
I'll
do.
do that and then I will share what I hear from him.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Dirk.
I gotta say I multiple times I have engaged in these kinds of like these email conversations with Dirk around, different texts and stuff. And he is so knowledgeable and so willing to help, right? He doesn't just give like a sort of off the cuff thing. He goes deep and it's really thoughtful.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
super
that's some
helpful.
bodhisattva practice right there,
Heck
right?
yeah. Heck yeah,
Yeah.
without a doubt.
Being willing to share, being willing to offer your
Hmm.
time, and your knowledge. Yeah, that's
That's right.
inspiring.
That's right.
Mm,
Yeah.
great. Well, Mahayana Precepts.
Tomorrow morning,
Yeah.
6:30 a.m. at the Lions Road Dharma Center. Be there or be mm, something else. I don't know. Be there, be square. But uh but yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I am too. So I'm actually taking them at 5:15 tomorrow morning because there's an online practice with Sravasti Abbey.
Yep.
So I'll do that.
Do you know who's going to be leading it?
It will probably be a lay practitioner.
Oh, okay.
And she's done it the last few times that I've taken them with the Abbey.
Okay, okay. I was just curious because I know that online, Venerable Tenzin Sepal from Sravasti Abbey has a number of talks about the eight Mahayana precepts.
Yes, yeah. And I also listened to a talk on the
Yeah,
precepts from Venerable Seppo. And there's some good stuff there. Things that angles that I hadn't quite thought
yeah,
about.
yeah.
Um, do you want to share maybe with a little bit about what the precepts are and why we do it?
Oh, for
I know that's a
sure.
big question, but maybe get us
Yeah, it
started.
is. It will get, how about we'll go over the precepts themselves, right? So
Sure.
basically it's like a mini ordination, right? Like we get to experience like monastic adjacent life for a short amount of time, right?
Mm.
So, in addition to the precepts that we take when we take refuge, there's a few more that we take, and those precepts we hold them for basically like 24 hours, right? Is the amount of time, and so. The precepts, I'll just read them off and then we can
Sure.
discuss them further. So it's not to kill, not to steal, not to engage in sexual contact, not to lie. And so those are like considered the root precepts. Then, of course, as we're familiar with at Lions Road Dharma Center, there's the precept to avoid using intoxicants. And then in addition to those five, there's some interesting ones here. There's a one of them is not to sit on high expensive beds or seats with pride.
Mm-hmm.
That one is quite interesting, kind of fun to think about a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's also not to eat food at improper times. And so this one is actually, this is probably the most you know, anyway, this is one that's kind of difficult for a lot of people. It's
Yeah.
basically fasting, right? You're gonna eat some food, like so. After tomorrow at Lions Roar, we'll take the precepts, right? There's some preliminary stuff and whatever, and then they take the precepts. After that's done, then we share a communal meal, and then after we're done eating that meal, there's no eating again until sunrise the next day. So it's like a
Mm-hmm.
little fasting there. And then the last precept is to not wear perfume, garlands, ornaments, not to sing, dance, or play music with attachment.
Yeah. So then, yeah, so all of these precepts are about kind of shifting the mind um, towards merit, towards things that are beneficial, being able to guard the sense doors,
That's right. That's right.
and yeah, kind of like protect the mind from straying from Dharma kind of objects of the mind. And uh, yeah, I've found them to, when I take them, to really, really do that.
Yes, without a
That
doubt.
it absolutely turns my mind for the entire day towards the Dharma.
That's right.
Um, and so everything becomes Dharma, which, of course it always is, but my mind being the
Yeah.
egocentric, distracted, ignorant, mind stream that it is currently, I'm not doing that every day.
Right.
And and so that is, you're right, like about that kind of monastic mind that we get to kind of practice that for a day, I think
Yeah.
is just so special. Um, and from what I've heard, like what I've, read and listened to, that just taking, the Mahayana precepts for one day is like as beneficial as like 100 years of charity, is what I
Right.
think Lama Yeshe
Right. Yeah.
says.
That's
Yeah,
right. Right.
really beneficial.
Yeah, that's one area where I think is kind of funny. Like I have sort of this part of me that's like, okay, so there's the concept of merit to begin with, right? But okay, merit, we can think of that as like positive potential from virtuous actions. But this idea that there are these auspicious days like full moons or Saga Dawa, which is
Yeah.
what's tomorrow. That these are merit multiplying days, and I was thinking about that because I'm like, that's always kind of rubbed me the wrong way because like karma's not a point system, right? It's not some kind of a cosmic point system.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. So like what are you multiplying? How can it be quantified in that way, right? And so I
Totally.
was sitting with it a bit because I'm like, oh, I don't, because this is that part's actually kind of serious, right? The multiplication of merit isn't, it's like it's not just like a metaphor, right? Like
Mm.
it's actually taken pretty seriously. And all the teachers talk about this. So I was like, well, what the heck? How can I think about that in a way where it actually makes sense? And I realized I was like, all right, so let's just say that we're like people that we're like farmers or whatever,
Uh-huh.
and our through time our ancestors, when they planted their seeds on a full moon in the springtime, right, when they did that, things worked out really well. They had bountiful harvest and everything was groovy when they planted their seed at the full moon in springtime. It just all worked out perfectly. And they
Yeah.
told, their descendants and so on, hey, if you do this, it works out really well because we actually also tried it on all these other days, at other times. We tried it, when there was no moon in the middle of winter, and that didn't work all that well, right? So then you get this idea like, hey, if you want really good results, then plant your seeds at this day and time, and that'll really work. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense to me because
Yeah.
there's like this there's all these interdependent causes and effects and conditions and stuff that make those days real like fertile, so to speak,
Yeah.
right? And so I'm like, I don't need to understand all the ins and outs, right? Like I'm not there yet where I actually understand the causes and conditions and that I can, I can't see the soil is just the proper nutrients and the light is just right and the water is flowing just right. I don't know all that stuff yet, right? But like
Yeah.
I can just like do what my ancestors did, what is practiced in the lineage, and be like, hey, everybody says that works, right? And
For
so
sure.
it works. Like I'm gonna do the eight precepts on Sakadawa full moon, and I'm gonna and it's cool too because like full moon, even in our culture, has some meaning, right? It only happens like 12, 13 times a year. So it's not like
Right.
every other day. There's something kind of special about it, right? Like there's
Mhm.
something, even like nurses talk about the crazy full moon. People are like, oh,
Really.
my, my body, my mind, oh, it must be a full moon. There's some kind of energy going on there. And I'm like, dude, I don't know. I'm not gonna like try to apply too much empirical stuff to it or try to like analyze it. I don't need to. What I know is full moons are kind of special. It's a good day. It's not like every other day. Let's do this thing.
Yeah. Nice. I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've always really liked it.
Yeah.
I've loved like the kind of idea of like just multiplying merit and it kind of feels like me to me like when you imagine making offerings to the merit field and just like multiply everything
Yes.
like kind of like echoing out into the universe like
And it feels
um
so good.
it does, yeah.
Yeah.
Kind
Yes.
of makes me think of that.
Well, and think about like how the fact that millions of people are going to be doing this exact same thing at
It's
the
really cool.
same time. Like we're not just a drop in the ocean anymore. We're a freaking wave, right?
Yeah,
Like
I
a
love
like
that.
a merit wave right when the world needs it.
Yeah, for sure. It's inspiring.
It
Yeah.
is. It is. I love it.
Yeah. Man, so maybe we could talk a little bit about the times that we have taken the precepts, what
Uh-huh.
that's been like.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
remember so the first time I took it, it was so I was so excited and I was like, this is so cool, it's so special, and it was everything from like taking the vows themselves. I'm early in the morning with just my small group of people at the Dharma Center, and then sharing the food afterward, and then going into the day, the whole thing, the entire experience super positive. That night I slept on the floor and it
Yeah.
was and it was so like it was energetic and it was fulfilling and it was meaningful and just so much goodness the first time.
Mhm.
The second time it wasn't like that. It
Yeah.
wasn't like that at all. It was actually I was doing it sort of the wrong way with the wrong intentions,
Oh,
right?
say
So
more.
yeah. So, one of the things that so taking vows is like it's big in all of the Buddhist traditions, right? But
Hmm.
Mahayana vows, the motivation is a little bit different, right? It's bodhicitta. And so, that's why we're taking these vows is to help and the why we want all this merit and stuff, right? We want to dedicate that merit to the benefit of all sentient beings, right? That's the attitude, that's the motivation, that's why we're doing this stuff, right? The second time that I did it, that's actually not. I was like feeling really like guilty and ashamed. I was like still using, substances or something, I can't quite remember, but it was like things like I was like, oh, and I'm gonna do this, and this is gonna like help me clear up some of that crap, right?
Yeah,
And it was more it had like a feeling of like repression to it,
for
right?
sure.
Like I'm having, like I'm bad, and if I do these things, then at least I'll be good for a day, and it'll help me correct my habits and whatever. There was still benefit to it, but it wasn't joyful. It wasn't light. It was,
Mm.
it had this real heavy, like something like some kind of drudgery, some kind of like obligation that I had to do it. And so I think that the merit, the benefit from it was much, much, much less. And so
Yeah.
my goal is to not have any of that tomorrow. I want to do it just like the first time, beginner's mind.
Yeah, for sure. I remember I had a similar experience my first time with the precepts where it was just like, wow, I am so cued in, like and it was this feeling like once I moved past, like the initial hunger where it was just like I have the entire day and evening to just focus on, mind training.
Yeah,
And I don't have to be thinking about food. I don't have to, like follow up, like read this book that I told myself I have to read. I'm just going to do Dharma practice. Like,
yeah,
how are we leaving?
right.
Um, and I would say I definitely, yeah, my next couple times, I had a similar experience where it was like I was doing it more out of like self-discipline.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Like how can I like tame myself?
Uh-huh.
And there's an element to it that there is taming
Of
required.
course. Yeah.
But it was more about kind of it leaning more towards like asceticism. Of course, like nowhere near extreme, right? But like it was
No.
more in that vein, where of like, okay, well, if I deprive myself, then I'm gonna, learn something. Um, and then there was one time too, it's actually another kind of sweet time where Lama and Sabrina were up here in Washington, on their land. And I went to see them and I was fasting and we actually went on this lovely walk and saw some of his neighbors. And she was taking down apples from her apple tree and offering them to us. And I totally just like forgot I took a bite out of this apple and was like, oh, wait a minute. But I
Oh,
was with Llama, and so it was just like, there was nothing wrong, right?
no.
And so I just ate the apple and it was fine.
What a wonderful, I think that's I'm so glad that you brought it up, right?
Mm,
Because like like when we break a precept, it's not like about doing the wrong thing, right? It's not like that at all. This isn't like a
mm.
moralistic thing at all. But that what I find really interesting is that what you described there, you were actually missing one of the really important components that's required to break a precept,
Intention, right?
intention,
Yeah.
right? So the four karmic components.
Entanglements or whatnot.
So it's well, you got first there's like the object, right? Which is the
Oh, right.
thing, right?
Hmm.
So this is for any kind of like karmic action. You have the object to which like the action is directed, right? You have
Hmm.
the motivation or the intention behind your action. Then you have the action itself, and then you have the
Hmm.
completion of the action, right? And
Yeah.
so you were missing when you ate she handed you the apple, you ate the apple, you weren't thinking like, oh, well, I took these precepts but I'm hungry and I want to eat this apple,
Right.
so I'm gonna do it anyway, right?
Right.
You just
Yeah.
took you're like, oh, this is what a wonderful moment, and you just
Right.
took the apple. That's beautiful. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, it was, maybe an act of mindlessness or forgetfulness,
Of
right?
course, yeah.
Forgetting my precepts, but yeah, there was no
Hey, and that's
intention. Yeah,
forgivable, right? Just like in our meditation, sometimes we forget what we're doing, but then we come back to it.
for sure.
And then you did the exact same thing. You were like, oh, right. And you come back to it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's a lot of interpretations too of like how to do the precepts. Like
Oh, yeah.
the one that you mentioned that's kind of like it feels kind of weird is the bed one.
Yeah.
And like sitting on like a high throne. And I actually took the precepts when I was at the Abbey for retreat. And one of the monastics was saying that, you actually don't need to like sleep on the floor.
Right.
Like you could sleep in your bed
Yeah.
and just like, just don't like be arrogant about it. Don't like have attachment about it. Just
Right.
you can even, talk with Buddha for a minute before, getting in bed and just saying, okay, and, I'm gonna, humbly kind of sleep tonight. And so, but I do think sleeping on the ground is a really interesting experiment,
Oh, of course.
around
Yes. A
comfort.
hundred percent. Yeah. One thing for
Um,
sure,
yeah,
Geshe Damsho has said when taking the precepts is, yeah, you could just sleep in your bed. It's fine.
yeah,
No big,
yeah,
it's okay. Right. It has some kind of root like don't be sleeping or sitting on animal skins, and I think it has something to do with, pride and arrogance. I think that's, Lama Yeshe mentioned actually, he said that the precepts are designed to counteract our involvement with the eight worldly concerns.
Hmm.
And so I don't see like a one-to-one mapping. You can kind of see a relationship between them, right? Um but I think that that's sort of part of it, right? Like historically, maybe there was some like if something about having really nice, comfortable, um luxurious, right? Stuff,
Hmm.
right? Just
Hmm.
like having lots of jewelry and really nice makeup and
Right.
things like that, how that's hey, we're not that's not what we're doing. It's not about that vanity. It's not about that kind of pride.
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of like yeah, just paying attention. I think that's so much
Paying
of what this
attention.
is about paying attention
Yeah.
to the things that we do, why we do them,
Ah,
the intention behind them. So it's similar to the one about makeup or jewelry is the entertainment,
oh.
music, dancing, singing. And I think you could certainly include TV, doom scrolling, all of
Doom
that,
scrolling. I
right?
think I think we need to revise them, the vows,
To
and
include.
include doom scrolling.
Maybe that should be the ninth precept.
Yeah, like
No
it,
doom
well,
scrolling.
okay, but here's okay, I'm glad you brought this up. Okay. So let me there's a spot in here. Hang on a second. I got my notes. There was something I wanted to bring up and we're getting close to the end of our discussion. Um, where is this?
While
Oh,
you're looking, I'll just say, I think that's one that I can easily kind of let slip because, it's just so easy to turn on the radio when I'm
oh
in the
yeah.
car,
Yep.
or, yeah, scroll, right?
Yeah.
It's just what I do
I've
sometimes
had
when
that
I'm not in
exact
it.
same experience, like driving back from taking the precepts and turning on the radio and being like, oh, no.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
So, Tenzin, is it Sepal? Is that how you say it? Sepal?
Yeah, Seppo. Yeah.
Sepal?
Hmm.
From Sravasti Abbey. When she was talking about not using intoxicants, and she says, yeah, so this is not no alcohol, no recreational drugs, and even cigarettes. But then this was the part that I thought was really interesting, and is to our point about doom scrolling. The purpose is to avoid anything that loosens our voluntary resolve of mind, right? And
Mm.
so if anything that weakens our ability to stay present or dulls our clarity or makes it easier for reactivity and habit patterns to take over, that's what's to be avoided with intoxicants. And I was just recently at a recovery event where someone said, yeah, all right, so I'm not doing the recreational drugs, I'm not drinking or any of that, but I'm addicted to 90 Day Fiancé.
Uh-huh.
TV show, right? That's
Yeah.
the same kind of thing, doom scrolling or whatever. You're mindless. This is about mindfulness.
Right.
So anything that encourages mindlessness is something to be avoided.
I'm glad you shared that. Yeah, that's some good kind of narrowing it down. It's
Yeah,
really helpful.
yeah.
I wonder if there's like, and I'm not going to do it tomorrow, but maybe at some point in taking the precepts down the road, like if I can practice like mindful doom scrolling, probably
Oh,
not. But
probably won't
instead
do
of,
it for very long.
yeah, yeah, for sure, right? Yeah, because it's probably going to go pretty mindless pretty quick.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, better just to kind of, yeah, keep it, straight and narrow for a day.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'm excited
Yeah,
to be taking the precepts with you tomorrow, Jack.
me too. Yeah, I look forward
And
to,
all the millions of other people taking the precepts.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's such a good reminder that we're going to be doing it with so many our yeah, Sangha brothers and sisters and siblings. It's a good thing.
Yeah, I hope this big wave of virtue just flows over the entire world like a tsunami.
Yeah, we need it.
Mm.
Yay. Well, thanks, Daniel. Thanks, everybody. Looking forward to seeing y'all next week. Yeah, make a donation if you can. We'd
Hey,
appreciate it.
especially if you do it tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. Merit just increasing infinitely.
Thousands, millions, 100 million times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good stuff.
All
All
right. All
right.
right. Take care.
You
Bye.
too. Bye.